I was married to my ex-wife for 3 years before she broke our marital vows and shattered whatever was left of my heart. My ex-wife and I met at a bar on a Friday night, and coincidentally we sat next to each other and ordered the same drink from the bartender. While I had gone to the bar to unwind from the day's stress, it seemed like my ex-wife was there to cry over her broken heart. She kept drinking and taking more shots until she threw up. As the good Samaritan I helped her back to the more comfortable bar seats, stayed with her for a while, and that was how we became friends. I didn't think that helping her that night would be the beginning of our love story. And somehow her sweet personality caused me to open my once broken heart to love again. My ex-wife was a caregiver, and I worked with a tech company. On our free days we would hang out together, either go to a restaurant or the bar we met or go for a walk in the park. And in less than 6 months of knowing her, I asked her out. It was almost like she charmed me with her personality, and I fell deeply in love. And because we were both young, financially stable, and in love, we married after a year of dating. We were so happy, and every day I thank God for giving me a woman like her. Mainly because I had lost hope in love and had already decided not to get married. I had experienced multiple heartbreaks with my exes in the past. With my ex-wife in my life, I was a changed person. I cut off friends because our goals did not align, especially the ones that insisted I cheat on my ex-wife because she would do it anyway. I also stopped staying out late because I wanted to spend more time with my ex-wife. I just wanted our marriage to be perfect, and because I had not been in a relationship that lasted that long, my ex-wife and I agreed that we would not have kids until we were ready. We got along well for the first 2 years of our marriage. If we had fights, I ensured we settled it before bed and didn't sweep anything under the carpet. I didn't want a situation where our arguments would lead her to find comfort in another man's arms, so I did what I had to do. In terms of provision, I provided for my ex-wife as a man should provide for his family. I got her whatever she wanted to make her happy and did my own share of chores at home. We visited our families whenever we were supposed to, and I always remembered our anniversaries. Around the 3rd year of our marriage, I noticed that my wife started acting differently. She wasn't cold toward me, but I could tell that something was off with her. Initially, I believed she acted that way because of stress from work. She recently told me about a new client she was assigned, and she was struggling with him. Since it was around the same time, I didn't pay much attention to the slight changes, and I encouraged her to rest more whenever she returned from work instead of watching reality shows the whole night. But when weeks passed and she didn't change, I became worried. I talked to her about taking a leave so she could rest properly, but she shook it off like it was nothing. Then she started acting weird and asking weird questions. She would ask questions about couples that opened their marriage and how they felt to be with someone else aside from their spouses. And if I answered the first question, she would jokingly ask me what I would do if I found out she was cheating on me. I blatantly told her I would leave and divorce her because I would not tolerate living with a cheater. And she would laugh it off and pretend she was asking a harmless question. She didn't ask this question once or twice. I lost count of the time she asked, and each time she asked, I wondered why she was asking the same question again. And she would tell me she wanted to be sure that I really loved and valued her. Initially, I believed her, but it became suspicious when she kept bugging me with the same question almost every 2 weeks. But after so much consideration, I let it slide. I didn't want to ruin my beautiful marriage and relationship with her based on my past experiences with my exes, so I convinced myself that she was only reviewing our marriage and doing her love affirmation thing. Around the same month her questions started. The organization she worked for hired another caregiver around the same age as my ex-wife, and they quickly became friends. This new friend was exactly her opposite. She loved to hang out on weekends and have fun, and in no time my ex-wife joined her. They started hanging out together more often, and after a long week at work, they would pick a place they wanted to hang out at. I didn't have any problem with my ex-wife and her new friend. I was glad she put aside her introverted nature and opened up to someone else that wasn't me. And I knew how choking it could be for your spouse to be your only friend. As she started hanging out with her new friend more often, it also gave me the time to rekindle my friendship with some of my old friends and see them regularly. At the same time, nothing really changed in our marriage. We were still the same, and our love for each other remained the same. One weekend, I invited 2 friends to come over and watch football at my house since I knew my ex-wife would be out that evening with her new friend. She was always my football partner, and since her outing was important to her, I didn't want her to cancel, so I invited my friends over. Unfortunately, about 15 minutes before the game started, I noticed we were out of my favorite chips, and I went to my ex-wife's purse to steal some cash. I knew she always left cash in that particular purse in case we needed to buy something urgently, and it wasn't my first time taking money from there. Instead of getting the cash I wanted, I found a strange business card with a red lipstick stain on it, and I was sure the lipstick was hers because it had that vanilla fragrance on the card. Also, I had heard my ex-wife talk about the name on the card a couple of times on the phone with her friend. Seeing that card didn't sit well with me, so I told my friends about it, and they opted we go and check out the place. We drove to the address on the card, which turned out to be a nightclub. I was stunned because she never mentioned going to a nightclub to me. She talked about fancy restaurants, bars, and picnics, but never a nightclub. Outside the nightclub, I recognized her friend's car, and I knew they were in there together. To cut the story short, we went inside and saw her in the VIP section with a stranger. They were cuddling and laughing at the top of their voices. From the way she wrapped herself around him, anyone could tell they weren't strangers to each other. I was so shocked and heartbroken, and I couldn't even move from my position. Thankfully, one of my friends took out his phone, took photos, and recorded my ex-wife and her lover together. I couldn't go home that night because I was so angry, so I crashed at one of my friend's place. That same night, we did a quick research on the club, and we found out her lover was the owner of the nightclub. Not just that, he was also the son of the client she was always complaining about, and it made sense to me. As for her lover, I left his nightclub a 1-star review and posted the photos and video online. The following day, I went home to my wife, and she was acting all nice and innocent. I didn't want to beat around the bush, so I told her I knew she was cheating, and she immediately denied it. I watched her cry and call me names for accusing her, and when I was done with her drama, I showed her the photos and videos and she couldn't say anything. Politely, I asked her to go in and pack her things, and she started begging and crying real tears. She blamed her new friend for misleading her and promised to be a better wife, but I was not having that. Her relationship with the club owner started when she asked those questions. I was so heartbroken and devastated, and I kicked her out when I couldn't listen to her pleas anymore. On the other hand, the photos and videos I posted went viral, and it ruined his club's reputation. It was such a big scandal, and even big vloggers in our city carried it. Unfortunately for him, his club began to run down. Eventually, my ex-wife and I divorced, and shortly after, she left town because the whole video thing did not die down, and people recognized her as the cheating wife from the photos and video. She was even used for memes, and till now I still stumble on her pictures used as memes. It's been years, and my heart has been locked for love. I am not ready to experience such heartbreak again, and I have focused more on doing the things that make me happy and add money to my account. This must have been very heartbreaking. A lot of times, the kind of friends our spouses keep can destroy marriages. Saying that her friend misled her is a very weak reason to cheat on you. She would not be easily misled or influenced to do the wrong thing if she loved you like you loved her. She was only using you, and asking those questions was only her way of testing the waters. Keep focusing on the things that make you happy and richer. With time, all the hurt will go, and you will forget about her. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Now let's move on to the next story of the day. Hello everyone. For the sake of anonymity, I'll be using fake names. Laura and I met after I graduated from college. She was almost rounding up with college then, and though we didn't start dating immediately, we knew each other for at least 3 years before I asked her to be my girlfriend. Our relationship was beautiful, and we matched perfectly with each other. We dated for 3 years before we got married, and for the first 2 years of our marriage, Laura could not conceive. We tried everything possible, did all the tests, and the results showed we were both okay, but no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't make a baby. Not like I wasn't bothered about it. I was, but the person that was most affected was Laura. She loved children, and even while we were dating, she always talked about how we'd start making children once we got married. So it was heartbreaking for her to find out she could not conceive. To make things worse, we were lucky to get pregnant once, and in less than 2 months she miscarried. This upset Laura and affected many things about her, including her enthusiasm toward life and the things she loved. It got so bad that she would start crying if she saw baby ads or pictures on Facebook. But luckily for us, towards the 3rd year of our marriage, Laura conceived again and gave birth to our beautiful daughter, Maya. Indeed, Maya was a bundle of joy. She changed so much in our lives, especially Laura's. Laura loved Maya more than life itself. and she did almost everything to make sure Maya was healthy and happy. We treated Maya with so much love. And as she grew up, Laura pampered her with whatever she wanted. She got her the best dresses, shoes, school bags, and everything a girl child should have. There was no asking why Laura loved our daughter so much. Maya's pregnancy came with many complications, and as soon as she was born, Laura and I agreed that one child was enough. That way we could take good care of her, provide for her, and give her the best education. On the other hand, Maya grew to love us and spent more time with her mother. My work took at least 9 hours a day, and most times I would work overtime to make more money. So except evenings, holidays, and weekends, I barely had time to spend time with Maya. And most evenings, she would already be in bed before I returned home. Honestly, I loved the mother-daughter bond Laura and Maya shared. And within me, I always wished I had the same relationship with my mom. Maya became our utmost priority. Her needs were first met before ours education-wise. We sent her to an excellent private school. Before Laura and I married, I knew her to be a go-getter and someone who gave her 100% to whatever she was doing, and somehow she passed the attribute to Maya. She always encouraged Maya to do well in school, make good friends, and be hardworking. She just wanted our daughter's life to be perfect, or so I believed. Initially, it started like motherly advice to her daughter, but as Maya grew older, it felt like she was imposing the whole good grades thing on her. She always wanted Maya to be on top of her class, read more, and play less, and I even remember telling her to allow Maya to be a child, especially since having the highest grades was not the most important thing at that stage of her life, but her social skills with her friends and so much more. She was being too hard on Maya. And although Maya did not see it as hard on her, I was an adult and saw it very clearly. As Maya continued to grow, she became less interested in reading all the time because it did not allow her to spend time with her friends and neighbors, and Laura took this very personally. It took me a lot of talking before Laura stopped being too serious with our daughter, and I was relieved she was finally allowing Maya to act her age. About a month after Maya's 5th birthday, I was home that weekend, and Laura asked me to help her clean her car. Initially, I was reluctant because I knew how untidy her car was every time I cleaned and how stressful it would be, but I did it anyway. I started by taking out the mats, cleaned the front, and as I was trying to clean the back, I found a pack of condoms in the driver's seat back pocket, and 2 pieces were cut out. Immediately, I saw the condom. My heart skipped because we never did it in the car, and the condom wasn't my size. The fact that 2 pieces were missing indicated something was wrong, but I didn't want to confront her without being sure. Seeing the condom in her car definitely changed my attitude toward her for the rest of the weekend, but I lied to her and said I acted that way because of something at work. A couple of days after I found the condom, I secretly set up a dashcam in her car to see who she was having an affair with, if at all she was having an affair. Many thoughts and reasons the condom was in her car crossed my mind, and I thought about all the possible scenarios of someone leaving a condom in her car, but I didn't want to rule out the possibility of her cheating on me. Well, my worst nightmare happened. 2 days after I hid the dashcam in her car, I found out no one left or forgot the condom in her car. My ex-wife was actually sleeping with someone else, and to my greatest surprise, it was my daughter's class teacher. Not only did I get videos from the dashcam I hid in her car, but I also got audio, and what I heard made my heart bleed. I was not only heartbroken, I was very disappointed because my wife was sleeping with our daughter's teacher so he could give her the highest grades in her class. I could not believe she could go to that extreme with her highest grades obsession. Without thinking twice, I contacted the school board and reported everything to them with my evidence. I also confronted Laura that same day and kicked her out of the house in anger. In fact, most of her stuff was already waiting for her in the living room by the time she returned. When I told her I knew she was sleeping with Maya's teacher, she immediately went to her knees and started begging me. She said she did it for Maya and was trying to help her get the highest grades so it would help with her college applications and whatever. I was so angry and I kicked her out of the house. At first, she didn't want to leave because she believed she was doing our daughter a favor, but after I yelled at her and my eyes were popping out, she left in fear because she had never seen me so angry. That same week, the school fired my daughter's class teacher, and I contacted a lawyer to start processing our divorce papers. On the other hand, Maya found out that her mother and I were divorcing, and she was so upset. I knew it was hard for her, and she was already asking questions, so I told her the truth so she could stay with me. Don't judge me, what her mother did was terrible, and I didn't try to sugarcoat it. Eventually we divorced and I won child custody for Maya. I didn't want her mother putting terrible ideas of desperation in her head, and I believed I did the right thing. I didn't know it would get her like that, but Maya was hurt and stopped talking to Laura. The only time she speaks to Laura is when she is either yelling or screaming at her, and this makes Laura cry all the time, mainly because she loved Maya and did what she did because of her. I still don't know if it's true. It's been almost a year, and I have reduced my working hours to spend time with Maya. Although it still hurts me that Laura betrayed my trust and broke my heart, I'm glad she is not in my life anymore. I may remarry when I feel ready again, but for now I want to spend time with my daughter and be the best father in the world. OP, this is really sad to hear. Why on earth would a mother sleep with her daughter's teacher for grades? This wasn't a mother's love. It was an obsession. I can only imagine everything that would have gone wrong if your daughter's classmates heard about it. I'm glad you handled this well and won custody of your child. She would definitely be a bad influence on the poor kid. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. My wife and I married at the age of 22. We were high school sweethearts. We got along super well and it felt like we belonged together. Our parents and friends thought so. Two things that I struggled with were impatience and control. Whenever I had to explain something to my wife, or whenever something wouldn't happen the way I thought it should, I would freak out. I wasn't always like that, it was only when I couldn't help it because I was working on something or anxious for something to happen. One of these times was when I was working on animating a cartoon I'd been working on for weeks. Suddenly, the program I used crashed. I couldn't get my computer to work right, which escalated into having to wipe the corrupt hard drive. I don't know what happened. All I know is I lost my mind. I didn't have the most recent work backed up anywhere, which I know was my fault, but I expected my computer to continue working just fine because it was relatively new. I was upset. I was yelling and started throwing things. I made a fool out of myself. There were a few other things that made me behave immaturely in the past couple of months, but I won't get into those now. My wife was sick of me. I knew it, I could tell, but she didn't want to comfort me or help me through it. She was ignoring me pretty hard. I finally caved in and asked her to do me a favor by coming along to the repair shop with me. She was the one who introduced me to the repair shop and told me she had been there a few times when she had computer issues. At the shop, there was an extremely buff nerd who knew exactly how to fix my computer. She kindly asked him where the bathroom was, so he took the computer with him to show her where it was in the back. He said he'd update me in 30 minutes. I watched them disappear together and it was a little weird, but I expected my wife back in 5 minutes or less. 20 minutes later, my patience grew thin, so I decided to head back there to see what was going on. When AP saw me, he immediately became defensive, asking what I was doing there. I told him I was just checking in on my wife to see how she was. He quickly answered by saying she was fine and told me to go back to my seat. I ignored him and continued to stand there, waiting for my wife. What I saw afterwards was absolutely shocking. Just as I was about to go check on my wife, she came out of the bathroom and it appeared her shirt was not buttoned up all the way. When she saw me, her face instantly went into a state of panic. I knew something had happened between them, and I told him I was going to tell his boss to check the cameras, and he said there weren't any in this area with a slight smirk on his face. So without missing a beat, I punched him. I looked at my wife furiously, then walked out of the building without the computer. She then came running after me saying she was sorry, and that it wouldn't happen again. She said something just came over her, and she didn't mean anything by this. She was frustrated because I was frustrated, and when he suggested it, she just did it. She said she only loved me and needed me because I was her soulmate. I told her I thought she was mine too, but apparently not. She ruined our marriage just for a few seconds of pleasure. I told her we were done, and she needed to call someone for a ride and place to stay in a future life because I wouldn't be any of those to her. She chased after the car, crying and screaming. She dialed someone, and my phone started ringing. I ignored all her calls and informed our families what happened. One day she sent me an apology text telling me she wanted to come clean some more, and asked for forgiveness. She mentioned that her and computer technician had been flirting with each other for quite some time now. It started off a couple months ago when she first went there to get her computer fixed. She mentioned how he was very charming and pleasant to be around. She said she didn't expect that things would escalate the way they did, and didn't know how to put an end to it. The reality was harsh. I woke up with a wife and went to bed without one. I didn't think today would be the day she slept with another man. My family's support was incredible. My sister came over to clean and make me food. My best friend came over to stay for a few days and brought his dog. I adopted a dog after this because I realized how amazing they were to have. My wife stayed with her parents, who heard what happened and couldn't believe it. They told her she only had 1 month to stay, and if she didn't figure out some respectable option, then she would be gone. They held true to their word because when my wife tried to go stay with a computer nerd who was fired because I told his boss, her parents didn't accept her back. Turned out the computer nerd couldn't afford for her to live with him, so they broke things off. She had to go find a female roommate to live with and pay rent while struggling on her own. I couldn't believe the support I received and how everything sucked for my ex and AP. Her mistake led me to become stronger on my own and realize I had to stop being so impatient and controlling. I should only be grateful. OP. I am so sorry your wife cheated on you in a computer shop of all places while you stood in the lobby. I can't believe she was so despicable. I'm happy you went back there when you knew something wasn't right. You certainly did not deserve this sudden heartbreak for apparently no reason, and I'm glad you had support. While you made an effort to move forward in life, your ex and AP started down the hard road of consequences and shame. It'll be extremely difficult for them to repair the trust they lost from all the people in their life. How could they expect anyone to remain loyal or respectable when they were both so willing to throw it all away in a moment? Any trouble they have finding support or trusting relationships is a struggle they deserve until they can look at themselves and figure out why this happened. I am extremely proud of you for being unwilling to sweep this under the rug and fighting from the moment of betrayal for a better future for yourself. It's wonderful that you found peace, strength, patience, and a willingness to go with the flow. There are plenty of fish in the sea, and they'll be there waiting for you when you're ready to fish. I wish you and your dog ultimate happiness in life. Now let's get into our second story for today. My wife 40 and I 43 were married for 12 years. We never felt ready for children, and I guess that's a good thing because of the story I'm about to tell you. Our house unexpectedly flooded, so during the repairs my older brother, 48, was kind enough to let us stay at his house with him and his dogs. He was kind of like a doomsday prepper and didn't believe in marriage or commitment. My wife was fascinated by his lifestyle and admired all the hard work he put into maintaining his self-sufficient farm. I think she was tired of living the usual life and just needed some change. Well, instead of talking to me about it and making a good change, she made a change without asking me. A change that would ruin our marriage. I was sleeping in the guest room when I woke up in the early morning hours to find my wife gone. The night before, we all drank and sat talking by a fire. We'd been staying here for 5 days at this point, and we didn't know how long our stay was going to be. I started tiptoeing through the house, trying not to wake up my brother, who was a light sleeper in the event of an intruder or emergency. My brother was already awake. His dogs were lined up at the crack of his door, smelling intent to deduce what was going on inside. I heard a quiet movement, but before I knocked, I thought it would be smart to see if I could see under his door because I heard some noises. I could see his bare feet and legs up against the side of the bed, shifting his weight in a way that meant sex. I felt myself knock on the door as I watched underneath. I saw my wife's feet drop down in a hurry and step into the nightgown that lay on the floor. I could hear her whispering, "Oh my God," because she probably didn't know how they were going to explain themselves. I heard my brother opening the many door locks and he greeted me. I was standing now and he was sweating. He looked really nervous. I think it was much harder for him to face me after having sex with my wife than he thought. He couldn't look me in the eye, and all he said was he was showing my wife the closets full of guns and non-perishable food. I punched him pretty hard. He fell back and grabbed his face. I told him he wasn't my brother anymore. Then I looked at my wife and told her she wasn't my wife anymore. I said I saw them under the door, and they each had complete disregard for me. I left to return home and inform both families of this betrayal. It was extremely difficult, but after I told my mom, things instantly became easier. She cried with me and understood how upset I was. She said she was going to disown my brother, which gave me the idea to call my MIL. She didn't want to believe it, but she did offer my apologies and gave me some advice. Moments later, my wife called me. She said her mother was disowning her because I told her what happened. I asked her if she thought she deserved this and she was quiet. She got bitter and said since I turned her mother against her she'll just keep my brother instead of me. I laughed and said my brother wouldn't keep her for more than a month. Turns out my brother kicked her out 17 days later. He said he felt horrible for what he'd done to me, and it took him all this time to realize he would only ever see her as my wife. He said he hated himself for doing this and never wanted to commit to a woman in the first place. He left a voicemail with his whole account of the breakup, because he wanted me to forgive him. My wife also continued to beg and plead for forgiveness. I might forgive my brother, but it'll take me a while. I'm happily divorced and living in the house that I've repainted and remodeled. It looks completely different, and I know the woman I used to know would have enjoyed this very much, but it's not hers to enjoy anymore. I've had lots of company over and even hosted parties, which is something I never used to do. It's still very painful to know what my wife did to me, but I am doing my best to take it day by day and focus on other things in life. I am so proud of you for handling this the way you did. What a wonderful way to spend your time and improve your future by changing and renovating the home you live in. You helped yourself to get through a rough, unexpected change and come out of it a better person. You sought out support from loved ones, which is also a very important thing to do. Anyone going through something so dramatic should try to relieve or distract their mind from the emotional torment. A spouse's disloyalty is never anyone's fault but their own. It's each person's job to maintain honest communication and always continue choosing their spouse as the one they love and are intimate with. Your ex made a terrible, shocking mistake by sneaking into your brother's bedroom as you slept. She knew the marriage was over as soon as she was caught, and the only reason she had the nerve to be so cocky is because she thought your brother would love and keep her. I am so glad consequences prevailed, and there was no chance of her living happily ever after. Thank you for sharing your story, OP. I wish you the best of luck in life going forward. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also comment below with your thoughts on what happened. I am 34 and my ex-wife was 30 at the time I wrote this story. Miriam and I had been married for 6 years and we had a beautiful daughter together. We were a happy family and I couldn't believe that Miriam would decide to throw away everything we shared as a family. We were always there for each other and supported each other's dreams. If she said she wanted to try something out, I would give her my full support, and the same applied to me. Everything began to fall apart when Miriam got the role of an intern at her dream organization, and after she completed the internship, she was lucky to be fully retained. The truth is none of us saw that coming, but I was so happy for her when it did. During my ex-wife's internship, there was this particular coworker of hers she used to talk about all the time. His name was John. She would return for the day and talk about how John was so intelligent, how he helped her out and so on. I didn't really think there was a problem with that because John was married and he was not helping her alone, he was helping other interns too. Also, being that we were couples who communicated a lot, I literally knew everyone at her place of work even without meeting them face to face, because talking about everything was just our way of bonding and filling each other in about our days. After my wife got retained by her organization, she began to change. If she left for work early in the morning, she would return around 7 p.m. leaving just me to care for and look after our daughter. This continued for a while, and anytime I tried to talk about this new behavior of hers, she would flare up and say I was being jealous because she earned more than me and her job was better than mine. Yes, it was true that my wife earned more than me, but that was not what this was about, and I hated that she had to rub that in my face each time we disagreed on something or had a fight. Miriam did not just suddenly begin to return home late, but she also became colder towards me. Before all of this happened, our weekend used to be something we all looked forward to because we would cook together, try our baking disasters, clean together, watch movies together, bath together, and even do karaoke with our daughter together, but all of that stopped after she got the job. It got so bad that even if she was at home, it was almost like she wasn't there. If she wasn't on her laptop, she'd be on her phone, and she didn't have an issue with consistently neglecting us to focus on whatever she was doing no matter how much I complained. It was very painful to watch this because I loved Miriam so much, and whatever was going on was not the plan I had for the both of us or for our family either. When I had enough, I confronted her one day and asked her to pick between our marriage and her new job, since it was turning her into the person she wasn't, and ultimately she picked her job. She said she'd pick her job over and over, and she did not give a damn about our marriage. This was a very painful thing to hear, and she was not kidding either. At that time, I was so busy trying to save our marriage that I didn't notice the changes in the way she dressed, her makeup, and even her choice of clothes. It was a clear sign that she was seeing someone else. It had to be the only reason she neglected me and our daughter, and I was right. One day, I had put our daughter to sleep early, and I went to our to think things through, and Miriam was on her laptop in the living room when I left her, so since she didn't hear any movement, she must have thought I was sleeping. She walked into the room, and I think she came in to confirm if I was asleep, because she didn't see me move. When she confirmed that, she continued to talk on the phone. It didn't take long for me to figure out that she was talking to her lover, whom she told she was pregnant, and at the end of the conversation she called his name. It was the same John, her coworker. I felt my throat go dry and I could not believe it. Miriam cheated on me with John, and not just that, she got pregnant by him despite everything we had been through together. I was really broken, but since we were already distant with each other, I didn't need to pretend that everything was okay. While she continued with her ways, I planned my revenge. I really wanted to confront her, but if I did, maybe things would not have turned out the way they did. I got one of those apps that allows you to track people's phones, and I tracked hers. I did this because I needed evidence, and without evidence, my revenge would be incomplete. I got their chats and text messages of them talking about the pregnancy and how she would try to pin it on me. The funny thing is, since Miriam had started seeing John, we stopped getting intimate because she was always tired whenever I tried to touch her. After that call, she tried to make us get intimate, but I didn't let that happen. Gathering the evidence took a while, and after I got enough, I printed them and put them in a big envelope, then I took it to her workplace myself. When she saw me that day, she pretended like we were cool at home and asked what I was doing there. LOL, I played along and told her I had come to deliver something very important to her boss, so she gave me a cold kiss and returned to whatever she was doing. If only she knew what was going to happen next, maybe she would not have kissed me. I think she was still a month pregnant because her baby bump was not obvious yet. That evening, she returned home in tears, but her bags were already packed by the door. I knew she had been fired because her company did not support coworkers dating each other, and to make matters worse, she was pregnant. When she realized it was me and I had known all this while, she fell on the floor and began to cry and beg me, but it was too late. I told her she'd be getting the divorce papers soon and kicked her out. John's wife eventually heard of the news and she divorced John too. John and Miriam did not end up together because he said Miriam ruined his life and all his years of hard work, and he wasn't going to take responsibility for the pregnancy because she was married to me, but we all knew the baby wasn't mine either. We eventually divorced, and with the help of my lawyer, I took custody of our daughter. I was not going to let her suffer for the sins of her mother. Miriam gave birth to a boy, and believe me, she has suffered a lot with the baby. Up to date, every time she comes to pick up our daughter, she cries, begs, and admits that she made a terrible mistake. I keep telling her that it would be my own terrible mistake to take her back. I'm sorry Miriam broke your trust and you had to go through all of this. I'll agree with you that you'd be making a terrible mistake if you took Miriam back. It was inhumane of her to abandon her family and cheat on you with a coworker. It's a good thing that she has gotten what she deserved and John played a fast one on her. I believe you will be fine, and you will definitely find a woman who will value and protect what you both have. I'm glad you did a good thing by getting rid of her and exposing her secrets. You're an example of a strong man, and thank you for sharing your story with us. Now let's move on to our next story for today. My ex-girlfriend and I had been dating for 4 years, and I was getting ready to propose to her before I found out she was cheating on me. Anna and I loved each other a lot. We were not the perfect Hollywood couple, but we loved each other. While we were dating, I asked Anna to move in with me because I wanted her to be around me all the time. She moved in a year after we started dating, and she went to college from my place. Being that we had dated for a long time, both of our parents were aware of our relationship, and they consented to Anna moving in with me since we were planning to settle down anyways. I was a remote worker who earned well, so money was not an issue for us. My clients paid well, and in turn I provided everything Anna wanted. If she wanted to shop every week, hang out with her friends, do her nails, or even get new wigs, they were all provided for. I cared about Anna and I wanted her to be happy. I played my part in being loyal and faithful, and I refrained from doing anything that would cause me to cheat on her or talk to any woman longer than I should. Anna, on the other hand, was a social butterfly. If she met someone on the same day, it would not take long before they became patties. This was the only problem I had with her, and it was always the cause of our fights. In the process of being social with most men, they would cross their boundaries, and Anna did not seem to have a problem with it. If we talked about it, she would tell me, "This is who I am and I am not going to change my personality because you are not comfortable with it," so I let it slide. When Anna finished college, she was not able to get a job immediately after, so in the process of staying at home with me, she added extra pounds, and this made her very uncomfortable. She had to change her wardrobe because her clothes no longer fit, being that she had expanded. I suggested that she try intermittent fasting, but when we weren't getting the results we wanted, I then suggested that she sign up for a gym, and she agreed. The first few weeks after Anna signed up at the gym, she wanted to stop going because of how much her body hurt. She would literally skip some days, and I would persuade her to keep going. She loathed going to the gym, and it was never something she looked forward to, but down the line, I noticed she began to change, and going to the gym was something she prepared for a day before. At first, I thought it was because she successfully passed that beginner stage where working out would not have to hurt anymore, but I was wrong. Ideally, she was supposed to go to the gym 3 times a week, since she spent most of her time at home doing nothing, but she changed it to 5 times a week, including weekends. This did not sit well with me, but I could not complain since it was my idea for her to sign up for the gym in the first place. Slowly, Anna began to stay longer than usual, and most times she would come home with so much excitement. As if that was not enough, Anna would pick fights over the smallest things. If I told her she looked better in a particular pair of pants, she'd get pissed. If I told her I didn't want a particular meal for breakfast, she'd make a big deal out of it. When I could not take it anymore, I told her parents about it, and when her parents called to talk to her, she got upset and left the house for about a week. At that point, I was so worried. We never had the kind of fight where she had to leave the house, and I didn't want her parents to know about it either. After repeatedly calling and begging her for the whole week, she returned, and that's when things got worse. I had to apologize for everything she did, even when it was clear that she was the one at fault. I did the cooking, laundry, and took care of the house. I did everything possible to make sure that we didn't fight again, even when she got on my nerves sometimes, because if I did, she would threaten to leave, and I didn't want that. Meanwhile, she did not miss any of her gym workout days, but our relationship was slowly falling apart. Before everything turned out the way it did, we used to get intimate at least 3 times a week, but after she changed, we could go 2 weeks before she let me touch her. One day, she returned from the gym quite late as usual, but in high spirits, and that particular day, I was having a tough time working because my service provider was giving me issues. I asked to borrow her phone so I could use her hotspot, and she just unlocked it and handed it to me. Then she went to her room to shower and change. While I was with her phone, it didn't take long before a message from a certain Andrew popped up. It said, "I know I should not be texting you now, but I want you to know that you're the sweetest and sexiest girl I know, and I love how you drive me crazy. See you soon." Then he added those heart-shaped emojis. It took me a while to wrap my head around what was going on, and when I did, without wasting time, I took screenshots of the texts and forwarded them straight to her family WhatsApp group, and then I called her mother immediately. When this happened, Anna kept trying to talk to me from the bedroom, but when I wasn't responding, she came out to meet my eyes filled with tears. I asked her if she was seeing someone else, and she flared up and threatened to leave as usual, but this time, I helped her in packing her bags. When she realized she had been busted, she begged and begged, but I still kicked her out. Her parents called her and yelled at her to the extent she could not control her tears. She knew she had disappointed them, and she had to live with that. I could not believe I allowed her to emotionally manipulate me, while she was screwing another guy from the gym behind my back. She tried to come back to me several times, but I warned her to never come close to me or my apartment. As manipulative as she was, she even tried to remind me of everything we shared, and told me to not let one mistake ruin everything. I had enough, and I got her a restraining order. Later on, I found out that the time she left the house for a week, it was Andrew's house she stayed at and not one of her friends as she claimed. Funny thing is, she did not even know Andrew was married, and his wife and son had traveled for that period. After about 3 months, she started calling my number again with a different number, begging me to take her back. She was sorry, but I blocked her again. Though it was not easy, I'm happy I got rid of that manipulative woman. OP. It's never easy, but I'm happy you did the right thing. Anna did not deserve a second chance. Not after cheating on you and taking your love for granted. You wanted what was best for her, but she turned around to pay you back in the worst possible way. No one should be with a cheating and manipulative partner. She was manipulative, and she did not deserve you. It's sad you had to experience all of that, especially after you repeatedly showed her nothing but love. Sorry things had to turn out this way for you, but it's a sign that someone better is coming your way, and you're going to get the love you deserve. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I wish you all the best going forward. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care. And I, 36 male, was working every day as a dentist. I was the father of 2 young children and I trusted their mother, 30 female, more than anyone. She was supposed to be my rock, my life partner. Her dream was to travel around the world. She was very smart and acted for years like a respectable woman. So I wanted to make her dream come true. Even before our wedding day, it became impossible for me to picture living my life without her. We were married for 6 years before we had our first child. 4 years later we had our second. Shortly after our second-born's 5th birthday, my wife celebrated 10 years of employment with her company. Our life was better than I ever could have asked for. We celebrated by hosting a party in our home. Several of her colleagues came over, and it was only the second time I got to meet them in all those years. Everyone seemed really nice. Several people complimented me and my wife. All of them got to see or meet our kids, who got out of bed to investigate mom and dad's friends. I didn't notice anything weird about the party or the people there. My wife was a little excited and jittery, but that was how she usually got whenever she was at a social gathering. She didn't know it, but I was saving up money as fast as I could for a trip to Australia to celebrate our upcoming 20th wedding anniversary. I worked 6 days a week, so I was looking forward to this more than any old Sunday. I had the thought at least once a week that our area needed more dentists. Literally just days after the party we hosted, and days before I planned telling my wife and kids about the trip I had planned, my MIL texted me. All she said was, "She's cheating on you." I replied with lots of question marks, and when she didn't reply back, I called her. She sighed before admitting that there were lots of people who knew my wife was cheating on me. She started an affair about 2 years prior with one of her colleagues. Completely taken aback, I asked why she, nor anyone else ever told me about it. She said she didn't tell me about it because it was her daughter, and she didn't want to be the one to tell her secret. But after so long of an affair, she couldn't take it anymore, and reasoned that I deserved to know so either of us had a chance at getting married again. I couldn't believe my wife was shamelessly seeing another man, and none of her coworkers felt like telling me. Then she added that my wife was looking forward to this upcoming business trip. My wife told her that work trips were the only time she could feel guilt-free with AP. Then she admitted to her mother that she might be enjoying her affair more than her marriage. I asked my ML what I was supposed to do about custody of the children, which I immediately regretted because she started saying that my wife was still an excellent mother, so I could let her have, and that's when I hung up. Now that I knew the truth, I was going to start taking my life back. I felt like a moron as I explained the situation to my lawyer. How had I not seen any signs? My lawyer suggested I obtain evidence of some kind before confronting her about it. So before she left me with the kids to go on the business trip she was so looking forward to, I asked her where it would be held and wrote down the address. She probably assumed I just asked for safety reasons. She kissed the kids goodbye and then tried to kiss me. I pulled away, but she didn't ask me why. She just looked at me a moment before she shrugged and left. That's how I knew she didn't care about me anymore. I planned to surprise her at the address she gave me. I left her kids with my mom, who was very eager to see them. She lived independently, 45 minutes away from us, far enough that she wasn't comfortable driving, so having the kids at her house didn't happen very often. I needed her more than ever at this point. I arrived at the address of a fancy hotel. There were several luxurious rooms for social gatherings. I found the one for my wife's and started recognizing people as I walked around. I held my phone, recording as I searched for her. If she so shamelessly spent time with this man around her coworkers, I could think of no better way to get proof and confront her. People I met before stared at me, probably wondering where they knew me from. One woman gasped and didn't take her eyes off me. She knew this was it. My wife was busted. Several other people noticed me looking around and remembered who I was. By the time I made eye contact with my wife, we had an audience of about 80 people. She had another man's arm around her waist. I could tell that just a moment before she saw me. She was extremely comfortable, having a marvelous time. I was shell-shocked. My wife dropped her wine glass as I felt my anger reach a point I never felt before in my life. All the years I spent with her and our children's faces flashed in my head. I thought about flipping over a table full of food, but I was recording her in AP at this moment. I was trembling as I rhetorically asked if anyone cared to tell me the truth about my wife. No one said a word. No one moved. I asked her directly why she cheated on me. Even though on the grand scale of things it didn't matter why my wife cheated on me, I felt like I needed to know. I wanted her to explain on camera why I wasn't good enough for her in front of all the people she worked with. She looked extremely stupid when she just stammered that she didn't know why. I scoffed loudly and yelled that our kids deserved a better mother. Then I walked out. Later that night, after I was back at home with our kids, my ML called, begging me to give my wife another chance. She said it wasn't her place to tell me what my wife was doing. I thanked her for telling me the truth because anyone deserves to know when they're being cheated on. She paused before asking me again to forgive my wife so she could come back home. She went on to explain that she didn't have room for her to move in and just flat out didn't want her to live with her. I laughed a hearty laugh and hung up. Neither her or her daughter cared about me. They were only thinking of themselves. For some reason, my ML became annoyed by the fact that everyone knew about my wife's affair except for me. So she told me the truth because it was what she wanted to do. Now that it inconvenienced her, she wanted me to forgive her daughter. She didn't even say it was for her daughter's sake. She just wanted her house back. Wouldn't you believe that my wife called me just 2 days later asking me to forgive her because she didn't want to live with her mom? She said she was sorry, but I knew her tears were because she hated the consequences of cheating on me, not because she felt remorse for breaking apart our family. I had already uploaded the video online and attached it to an email to her company. She and AP lost their jobs already. I took this time to tell her that I saved up money for a trip to Australia, intending to celebrate our 20th anniversary, but now it was going to be a trip for me to celebrate being a father to 2 amazing kids. My mom would be taking her ticket. She didn't believe me at first, but then she started throwing a tantrum. This was the best and worst karma for her to experience. She was missing out on her lifelong dream that I made possible, all because she started a shameless 2-year-long affair with a colleague. I'm happy to say that the trip to Australia was absolutely incredible, and it really helped me to grow as a father and heal as a man. OP, I am so sorry your wife did this to you. You and the kids certainly deserved better than this from her, and you wanted better for her too. It's devastating that she did this to you without any concern for the family and life you had together. She behaved as though she could get away with it for as long as she wanted, and she really didn't expect anyone to rat her out. I guess it was the fine work of karma that got into your ML's head and convinced her to rat out her own daughter. She basically said it was because she was tired of her getting away with it. There you have it. The betraying daughter is betrayed by her betraying mother. The circle continues. You did the right thing by confronting her, recording, and refusing to forgive her for this. I feel like a lot of people use the word forgive to pressure victims into being pushovers and allowing the person that hurt them to keep getting everything they want in life without any repercussions. Thank you for providing us an example of what a betrayed spouse should do. Never accept anything less than the vows your spouse made to you, and never give your spouse anything less than those vows. Whenever there's any kind of issue that puts a wedge between you and your significant other, an honest talk is the only way to try resolving the issue properly. In many cases, there isn't a specific problem with the relationship when one spouse starts a comparison game or gets a thought that festers into reasoning for them to cheat. Shut down that temptation as soon as it arises by talking to your partner honestly every day. Appreciate everything your spouse wants to share with you and work together to decide what needs to happen next. I wish you all the best. Now let's get into our second story for today. My wife, 27 female, and I, 28 male, got married young when we were 20 and 21. I met her through friends while I was attending college and I fell in love. Before I met her, I never thought I'd let my guard down for a woman so quickly, but I believe we were meant to become a pair. I obtained my degree the same year my wife became pregnant. Life was moving fast for us, but I never felt worried or scared. My parents were a little. Her parents were thrilled she was settling down and staying out of trouble. She never told me much about her past, but she had a lot of friends. It seemed that for much of our relationship, if not all of it, I was sharing her with her friends. After she had our son, she went back to socializing and insisted I stay home to watch him while she went out at least once a week. I easily agreed to this. I felt like we were living the perfect dream. After a while, I wanted us to go out together, but my wife didn't trust either of our parents to watch our son. I thought that was pretty frustrating because they were supposed to help us and smother their grandson with love. So things stayed the same. She went out with her friends, then sometimes she watched the baby while I went out. I didn't like this separation. Before I got to talk to her about it, she started acting weirder. Each night she went out, she'd tell me which friends she was going to meet. She started to get scrambled and forgot which name she told me the next day. I pointed out her inconsistencies and how she was always vague about what they did each night. She got nervous and said she had to lie to her mom about who she hung out with, because her mom hated one of the girls she spent time with, so that's why she got confused and told me the wrong story. I did not believe this at all. It was just alarming. How could she forget which truth to tell me? If her mom didn't like one of her friends, that isn't a very complex lie to keep straight, and it wouldn't mean she have to lie to me at all. I didn't want to cause an argument because I could tell my wife was in defense mode. While she was out another night, I called my MIL. I asked her who my wife said she went out with the night before. She was audibly uncomfortable and put on the spot. She cursed a little and sighed heavily. She assumed the jig was up and admitted my wife was seeing someone else because she had some growing up to do. I was shocked and hurt. My MIL justified my wife's cheating ways, blamed it on her immaturity. She assured me that my wife would learn from this if I could let it go this time. I hung up on her. I looked at my son and I felt broken, like I would never be the same after this. When my wife returned, I told her I knew everything. She looked at our son and instantly broke down. She told me she needed me to forgive her. She said exactly what her mom said, that she was young and stupid and made a bad decision, but she didn't deserve to lose our family. It was honestly really annoying to hear her talk about what she didn't deserve. She didn't deserve me, my trust, or the nice home we had as a family. I dedicated myself to her, even though I was just a year older than her. Why should I accept this when it's the one thing I never expected her to do? It's the one thing I decided I wouldn't tolerate in my marriage. With these thoughts fueling me, I told her to go stay with her mom. She took our son with her to her mom's. Anyway, it felt like she was trying to punish me for refusing to forgive her. During the divorce, I realized I needed to obtain solid evidence of my wife's affair. I knew I wouldn't be able to get anything from her or her mom directly, so I served subpoenas on my wife's cellular company. As soon as she heard about this, she in turn requested a protective order in an attempt to squash my efforts in proving her infidelity. Thankfully, the court saw what she was trying to do and sided with me. I had the right to engage in discovery which might lead to evidence of her adultery. To no one's surprise, blatant evidence of an affair was found. Images and texts sent between her and more than 5 other men. All the time she ever planned to go out with AP were there, along with the plans she made to hook up with 2 other men. I'm happy to say that I won primary custody, and have since healed from this experience. I started dating a wonderful woman 1 year and 2 months ago today. She's a young widow with a young daughter. I can't explain it, but it feels like my story was already written. I know I was always meant to be with this woman, as much as I am meant to be a respectable father figure to her children. I feel like I've grown wiser and saw straight through my ex and her mother's manipulation tactics. Opie, you are absolutely right. You saw straight through their word flattery. They tried to make it seem like your wife's completely unacceptable betrayal was just a simple mistake, because she had some growing up to do. That is no excuse, and it's no reason for you to stay with a cheater. She proved that she wasn't ready for marriage, and that she didn't respect or love you. To stay with her just because she was young or immature would have been a grave mistake. She just opened the door to infidelity, comparisons, and wondering who else she could spread her legs for. You operated as an example for men put into a similar situation. Separate from the cheater, seek support and evidence, and do not accept anything less. At least you've done yourself a great favor by refusing to stay with her. I'm proud of you for how far you've come, and I wish you the best of luck in life. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Hey everyone, it's Gary here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's story is a good one, so grab a snack, relax, and take a listen to this. In today's story, Opie found out his wife cheated on him with a famous Olympian athlete 4 days after their 10-year anniversary. Now his wife is begging for mercy and claims she is very remorseful. Now let's get into today's story to find out what happened. My wife and I have endured a lot over the course of our marriage, most of which are things that were beyond our control. I have a successful career, but our earnings were taken from us by thieves twice in 5 years, and I have an immune disorder that gets me sick at the drop of a hat. So of course when COVID came around, I almost died from it and spent over a year recovering from very bad symptoms that kept me in bed most days. Luckily, my career allowed me to work remotely from my bed, but I can't say I did my job well as COVID brain fog is a thing. Fast forward to April 2021. Ailment, brain fog, and financial difficulties all culminated in me recognizing I reached the point of emotional hopelessness. While not suicidal, I knew I needed professional help in a major way, so I voluntarily checked myself into a behavioral hospital for a few days. While the hospital itself was only marginally helpful, one therapist helped me to realize that my long-term ailments made me unintentionally selfish due to prolonged depression. I ugly cried when I had this epiphany as I realized what harm I brought to my wife's emotional well-being, and to our marriage in general. I was a new man almost overnight in some respects. I was still quite emotionally fragile and recognized I had a long way to go to repair myself and regain my wife's confidence in me. I emerged from the hospital and my wife picked me up. She immediately noticed the 180 and said, "Wow, I have my husband back." I told her my COVID symptoms continued to abate, and even my libido and desire for emotional and physical intimacy for her was also returning and looked forward to embracing us fully. And my wife was incredibly happy for me. Unfortunately, fate stepped in 4 days later as she sat at a cafe outdoors. A younger, fit, healthy, and charming athlete decided to strike up a conversation with her. My wife is, in a word, hot. I know I show bias because she's my wife, but she looks amazing. She is tall and very well proportioned and her face is beautiful. The gentleman in question was a foreigner and a charmer. He was a bona fide sponsored professional in his sport and well known in his country. He visited our city to train for a few weeks. When she came home, she could not shut up about the guy, but I thought nothing of it. Crushes happen and I am not the jealous type. The day after was the beginning of the bad times ahead. She didn't tell me they exchanged contact information and they met up. She came home from her daily dog walk beaming. I knew immediately she met him. She tried to deny it, but she knows I am very astute when it comes to reading people in general. She pretty much told me that she was going to have this non-emotional, purely physical thing and said sex would not likely happen. As I was 5 days out of the mental hospital, I was in no position to fight her on this, either mentally or physically. As with the latter, I was still weak from fighting 14 months of COVID, even though the vaccine continued to allow me to improve steadily every day. With the lack of intimacy on my end due to being sick for so long and considering he was only in town for another week before he returned to his home country, she was absolutely determined to have this affair. Because I lacked the means to fight her effectively, she viewed it as approval from me, which it was not. I essentially told her that she should let me track her phone at all times for her safety. She would let me know if they were intimate. She promised, but she lied on both counts, of course. Furthermore, she told me that while he was in town, I could not hug her, touch her, kiss her, or make any intimate overtures towards her. I told her that I was afraid she was lying to me and that she was falling for him. I asked her to promise me I was not losing her. Remember, I was fresh out of a mental hospital due to hopelessness, and she said she could not promise that to me. She took him to our favorite restaurant, a very romantic place. They made love in a park that night, even though she told me they had only kissed. The next morning, she grew livid when I asked her again how far they went. Adults don't go into a closed park at night to kiss, and insisted I was being paranoid. She checked herself into the swankiest hotel in our city because she needed time to herself, and tried to convince me that she was not doing so in order to see him. She stayed for 2 nights. At the end of the second night, he showed up. She had the nerve to text me that he came to the hotel, and that they had mediocre sex. Then he left. She met him one final time the next morning at a cafe, as he was leaving the next day. She decided to go all out and proclaim she had fallen for him. Here's where it gets funny and sad. The man was a player in every sense of the word. He was shagging multiple women while in town, trying to juggle them all, including my wife. At no time did he reciprocate any words of affection or emotional attraction to my spouse. He was a 100% pure alpha male player, treated her horribly, spent most of their time together talking about himself, his training, And even that he went to a strip joint with members of a professional NFL team, which pissed her off but also made him even more attractive to her, of course. So she came home, fully expecting me to light her up, and I did. She said she did it. It's over. She had no emotional feelings for him, and said it was my decision as to whether or not I wanted to stay with her afterwards. She said she did it as a means to regain her self-confidence, something I tried to do for years before I got sick to no avail. I'm a pretty smart cookie and really good from a technical perspective. I knew from the outset she would lie, omit, and follow the cheating wife's playbook, and did it to the letter, including gaslighting me on a number of occasions. Let's say that I had the means to listen in on their conversations in real time and recorded it. She knew I had the capability, but she chose to blatantly disregard it and pressed on with the affair. Of course, she even offered to let me go and screw someone to make me feel better, if that's what I wanted to do. So stupid. So typical of a response. Every lie she told I called her out on. I presented the evidence. She was devastated when she knew she was fully caught. I had just about everything. Of course, she tried the I can't remember crap. She tried to downplay their sexual encounters. I knew about both. I knew she told him she fell for him, as again I was able to listen in real time and record the same. I gave her the transcripts. So where are we now? Now she is aware of how much she hurt me. She's doing everything and anything to make it right, but there is nothing she can do to regain my trust, and she knows that as well. She says she is willing to take my anger and my indifference for the rest of our lives, if it means that I may see through her actions that she is more than sorry for what she did to me. I think she is truly remorseful. She admits that if he stayed in town longer, she would have continued to see him, knowing full well that it would have completely ruined any chance we had to reconcile. She's blocked him. I have access to all of her devices. I know where she goes at all times. She says she will let me do this until the end of time. What she doesn't understand is that she has forever changed me. I was never a jealous man. I am not an alpha. I never tried to be, but I am confident in who I am as a man, and I've never had problems with the ladies. I've had 100 opportunities to stray due to women's advances towards me, and I never considered infidelity. The first time it happens to her, she was a bit heavy prior to how she looks now. She lets herself get shagged, and all because he was so good-looking and fit and confident. He played her like a fiddle. Why am I not filing for divorce immediately? Because prior to her idiotic endeavor into wayward wifeville, she bent over backwards when I had COVID for 14 months. She kept me on this planet. To say what she did was over and above to keep me on earth would be an understatement. I know she loves me. I know why she betrayed me. She tried to blame it on stress and lack of confidence, but in truth it was simply because a guy like that, for the first time in her life, wanted to screw her. And he said all the right things about her looks. He got her to say sexual things she would never otherwise say. She has admitted to everyone, from her friends to her parents, what she did, and that she will spend the rest of her life trying to make it up to me. And she knows I don't trust her, and may still decide to leave her. Right now, it's 50-50 about whether I will call it quits. I have a lawyer. I have papers written up and ready to be delivered if she messes up even once with me. Update. Here's some more info on her affair partner. The guy is on his way out as a pro sports guy, as he's in his late 30s. He still competes and travels internationally with his country's Olympic team. He has a side gig where he uses his charm and his story about his accomplishments to woo beautiful, sophisticated, wealthy married women to get into the sack with him. As I am a cybersecurity guy with an additional talent for looking into anyone's life, as I see fit, I found out very quickly that he owns a sex site along with his brother. He clandestinely records women he conquers, whether in their own homes, hotel rooms, etc. His MO is that he wants to listen to music from his smartphone, when in actuality, he's using it to record videos. Update number 2. There are some more things I need to clarify. While I don't want to do the homework for those of you who say COVID doesn't last for 14 months or the vaccine doesn't cure COVID, you're right on both accounts to a point. There exists a group of people, roughly 20% of those who contract COVID-19 and are symptomatic, who experience one or more moderate to severe symptoms beyond 60 to 90 days. Many of us who contracted the virus early in mid-2020 seem to experience the long haul or symptoms that last well over a year. Look it up. As for the vaccine curing me, you're right, it didn't. Also, I see that some of you are calling me a simp for staying with her. I am a Sigma male. I am confident, charming, good-looking when not sick, intelligent, and exude self-confidence. I suppose it's a difficult thing for those who don't suffer long-term ailment, especially an ailment that completely takes away one's libido for over a year, to process that I had no desire and I was impotent due to COVID and occasionally due to my immune system prior to COVID-19, which affected our relationship for certain. That does not make me a simp. I have seen what women will do when they are infatuated and have the opportunity to cheat. They will do just that, and my wife was no exception. Of course I told her no. Of course I told her what kind of a person she was, shallow, narcissistic, etc., for what she was determined to do. She initially denied anything was going on, but I knew better and called her out. But my body and spirit were weak. I was like, fine, you want to do this and potentially wreck us? At least let me know where you are at all times because you don't know this man. Yes, I know he is famous in his country and he has an image to protect, but please don't be intimate with him. If you decide to go that route, wear protection for yourself. I don't plan on having any intimate relations with you should you go that route, just so you know. Of course she agreed to all terms and broke every rule because she was being a typical defiant female cheater, and I was an impediment to her desire to have the affair. Also, I have divorce papers ready for my lawyer to pull the trigger, but there are some issues. My state is no fault, so her infidelity and my evidence concerning it means nothing. She doesn't work. I have always made excellent money so that she could be the artist and socialite she wanted to be. She's highly educated, very intelligent, and very talented artistically. And she spends most of her time volunteering for many worthy causes for others less fortunate. But what that means for me is that should I divorce her, I'd likely have to pay alimony in an amount equivalent to her lifestyle. Our current financial difficulties stem only from identity theft because as a cybersecurity guy, I pissed off a few hackers who were well-funded and represented other countries. I still make good money. We are crawling out of the hole, but I'll be damned if I divorce her right now as she'll be the one who benefits, and I'll still be okay and have a decent living wage. But paying her alimony after she screwed me over this hard, all because the state doesn't care about infidelity? This is reason number 2 why I haven't pulled the trigger. Wow, OP, I don't even know where to start. There's so much to unpack here. From my understanding, the reasons you are planning on staying with her are because you believe this was a slight hiccup she had because for the first time in her life, she got the validation she needed from a guy who was perfect in her eyes. The second reason you stated is that you can't afford a divorce right now due to the hacker situation. Here's what I think you need to do. If you can't divorce her right now, then your next option should be to at least separate from her so that you can have some space to clear your head. It would be nice to that she just had an itch that needed to be scratched and that it won't happen again, but the likelihood that another man could get into her head and into her pants by just paying attention to her and complimenting her on her looks seems way too prevalent. And what if he comes back to town? You aren't entirely sure what she told him about herself, and he may have the resources to find her. Unless she has learned the hard lesson that she got played, she and you are in for more heartache. And if she is okay with being humped by a stud because she is getting her jollies out of it, she will do it again. Only if she is disgusted by being used and knowing she was a throwaway will there be any chance on her end of it never happening again. But you won't know that until a similar situation arises, and she either shuts it down or falls for it again. Do you really want to take that risk, OP? I also recommend that you get into counseling so you can learn more on how to deal with this situation. Good luck. Thanks for taking the time to listen to today's story. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and comment below on what your thoughts are on today's story. If there's a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me.